Your headlines to start this Wednesday in our Sunrise Smart Start. The news breaking overnight. 2 people are in custody after a high-speed chase from Rochester to Brighton. This all started around 1 a.m. near Hudson Avenue and Avenue D when officers watched a man who appeared to have a gun jump into a car with a passenger. Officers tell us they tried a traffic stop, but the driver sped off. That pursuit ended on East Henrietta Road and Metro Park when the suspect vehicle crashed into another car that had the right-of-way at the intersection. Both suspects were taken to the hospital for treatment. The other driver is okay. Charges are pending. Also breaking, a 63-year-old woman from the city is recovering after a shooting on Arnett Boulevard. Officers rushed to that call a little after 10 o'clock and found the woman wounded. They got her to the hospital. She's expected to live. No arrests have been made. The search is still on this morning for the suspect in Monday's deadly triple shooting on Hazelwood Terrace. Rochester Mayor Malik Evans is once again, after this violence, calling on the community to come forward with leads in this case. It was yesterday morning we learned from RPD 19-year-old Rakia Isaac died at the hospital. The investigation so far indicates she had been walking down the sidewalk with the 2 other victims, 2 boys, 15 and 16 years old, when an unknown number of suspects approached them and opened fire. Authorities are still working to find out if this was random or if the victims were the intended targets. And here's the mayor talking about violence prevention and awareness.
Many of the people carrying illegal firearms in our community are kids and parents, grandparents, friends, brothers, sisters. You need to know what is in your kids' rooms, what's in their book bags, what they're carrying in their satchels. If they are carrying illegal firearms, you need to make sure that you get those turned in. And unfortunately, we've seen that. We've seen instances of shots fired, and they've been perpetrated by kids that have been between the ages of 14 to 18. So we need parents to make sure that they are very vigilant and know what's going on in your kids in your house.
Evans went on to say they've already received numerous anonymous tips on this case. Their police are also asking people who live in the Beechwood community to check home surveillance systems and come forward with videos or pictures they may have of anything suspicious on Monday. News 8 did receive this statement from the head of the Beechwood Neighborhood Coalition, saying it's very disappointing to see another round of violence in our community involving our youth. That area has made tremendous strides, the statement says, and is filled with great families and citizens. It goes on to say it is time for every elected official to put down their personal pride and political agendas and come together in the same room to create a comprehensive plan that will put the safety of our kids and our communities as the top priority. We've got some new reaction to Harley-Davidson ordered to pay out $287 million as the company was found liable in a lawsuit stemming from the death of a trike rider. That initial verdict came down last week in Livingston County, finding the company had a defective traction control system that led to the death in 2020 of Harold Morris's longtime companion, Pamela Sinclair. The system's software malfunctioned, causing Morris to lose control of the 3-wheel motorcycle and run off the road. In 2019, that trike had the same problem that led to another previous crash. In that, Morris and Sinclair were injured in the initial accident, but their injuries at the time were not considered serious. Harley-Davidson claims Morris is to blame for both crashes, and it plans to fight this and appeal.
The aggregate verdict was, I don't know the exact number, it was $287 million in total, with a punitive damages award of $240 million. It's that punitive damages number that we really wanted to get out there, that we really want people to know. Harold has told me from day one, in fact, he stood in front of this courthouse 4 years ago with some news cameras, and he said that we want to come here because we don't want this to happen to anybody else again, that companies like this need to be held accountable.
In court. Happening today, the sentencing for the former Rochester police officer who raped a teen in the Finger Lakes. Sean Jordan previously admitted to raping a 13-year-old in the summer of 2022 in Ontario County. He also admitted he touched that victim inappropriately at a different time that summer. In a separate case still pending here in Monroe County, Jordan is accused of exposing himself to a teen during a Facebook video chat. After his arrest last year, RPD suspended Jordan without pay. He later resigned. He's in Ontario County Court at 2:45 this afternoon. Sunrise traffic here 10 minutes ago until 7 o'clock. Around our map, it's all green. Surrounding the Rochester Metro, traffic starting to pick up there with volume on the west side a little bit. Of note, some of the newer construction projects happening. 250 and Webster from the heart of the village running up to Lake Road. They are pulling up the pavement, getting ready to resurface that. So a lot of that is one way with flaggers there on the detours. As the countdown for students to return to school drags on, the Rochester City City School District is putting the finishing touches on the annual safety plan ahead of the first day after Labor Day. The community had the chance to give opinions last night once again on the plan to keep students safe at a public meeting. The current draft of the safety blueprint mentions plans for preventative factors including evacuation, fire, and lockdown drills. But those who spoke out last night say while it's critical to have these contingency plans for an emergency in place, it's also important to also invest in social emotional growth to prevent a crisis in the first place.
No matter our age, our friends are often the first to know when we are struggling. By empowering students to help one another, even just on what to do when a problem is too big for a kid to manage on their own.
The board has already approved having RPD keep up support at arrival and dismissal times for students, with officers having an active presence on school grounds, and some still have reservations about that.
I don't think we do enough to empower our kids to help their peers. They're our first line of defense. They care about their friends. They don't want them to get in trouble. And this could be getting involved in crime and violence, but this could also be self-harm, eating disorders, abuse. How do we help kids help their peers?
RCSD has included a collaboration with the city's outreach team, Pathways to Peace. The public comment period runs through Sunday. You can send in your submissions, anything you want to say, to the district's Office of Safety and Security. New this morning, the Monroe County Legislature did vote unanimously, providing $6 million in federal COVID relief funding to help seniors and young people in the suburbs. But an effort to add money for similar access for residents here in the city limits was defeated. Lawmakers say this pot of money was initially agreed upon to help address support that was cut off due to the pandemic. Specifically, senior centers were closed. That prevented older people from socializing, getting needed help with their taxes, nutrition, other services. An amendment from Democrat Rachel Barnhart to add $2 million for city services did not make it through. She and those who support the measure call the original proposal an effort to treat the city differently than people in the suburbs. Another legislator, Mercedes Vasquez-Simmons, referenced South African apartheid and a system of segregation in Rochester that continues today. She says excluding people in the city is dangerous. Opponents of the Barnhart Amendment suggest the city had already received millions of federal COVID relief dollars, known as ARPA funds. The total package approved Tuesday night is around $25 million. We know there are invasive species all over the world that can really harm trees and ruin landscaping. That includes here in Rochester. For August, what is Tree Check Month, by the way, Aran Spitzer heard from an arborist to learn more about the problems and what exactly to look out for. Aran.
Yeah, Brennan, so the term invasive species sounds scary, but we're talking about pests, insects, and some fungi which come from other parts of the world and without natural predators can spread pretty easily. They get here through global trade. The invasive species come in on shipping containers and materials, move into the forest, and multiply. And without those natural predators I mentioned, like certain birds and other insects. One of our struggles in Rochester is a type of insect which attacks hemlocks. Hemlock trees are native here and common in our forests and popular landscape trees that can be found on sidewalks, yards, and parks. This can eventually become a hazard if not treated as the affected tree can fall. Knowing what trees are susceptible to attack, though, is helpful.
We can plant trees and shrubs that aren't vulnerable to invasive species, and so we don't have the problem. We're not providing the host for the invasives.
Anytime the crown of a tree starts to look thin, you might want to question it. There are other signs too with the hemlock tree. For example, there's a white fuzzy substance which is a telltale sign of the invasive species. Now, to deal with it, you can call a qualified professional to assess your property. Guys, back to you.
Good to know. Thank you, Aran. Final check there, Liam, of the forecast.
It's looking good today. We got a little bit of haze from some wildfire smoke still up there in the sky, but should be generally mostly sunny, not just today, but also into tomorrow. We'll watch some rain begin to try to make its way towards us by the time we head towards Friday, and then we'll start to see a couple more scattered storms and a bit wetter of a weekend for a lot of us.
We'll have more details on that when we see you again. Your weather and news at about 7:25. CBS Mornings coming your way next.